The 5th century AD, another pope made it a law. It became church law to observe forever that December 25th was the day that Yeshua was born. Yes, after all these pagan, after all the different pagan gods, the same day that they're born, we're going to make our Christ born on that day as well, so that we can get more converts, so that we can control the people. We can control more people. Okay? So 300 years after the death of Yeshua, the date was chosen to celebrate his birth. Wow. 300 years after he's gone, now comes on the scene this, we're going to celebrate the birth of Christ. That's foolishness. If red flags don't go up in your head, it's something wrong with your head. You need to get it examined. If it was something that was important, the disciples would have done it. If it was something that was important, Yeshua would have instituted it himself. If it was something that was important in the Old Testament, you would see the type and shadow of this celebration coming into the New Testament. But it's not there. It's forbidden. Okay? If you look in the World Book Encyclopedia, under the article Christmas, the birth of Christ is not known. They flat out tell you it's not known. Okay? Early church did not celebrate his birthday, as they considered birthday celebrations a pagan custom. Okay? And that's a whole nother study. I don't celebrate birthdays anymore. We don't do that in our house, because when you look in the Word of God, anytime you see the birthday celebrated, it was kings that were celebrating their birthday, and something always awful was happening. No date, no time in that Word of God where someone celebrated their birthday did something evil not jump off. It was always evil. And what's the big deal about you being born anyway? Isn't his birth, wouldn't the birth of Yeshua be more important than yours? Yet his birth is not mentioned as to what exact date it was. Not to mention, none of the prophets' dates, birth dates, were mentioned. Not to mention, none of the disciples, not one, was mentioned what day they were born. This is not an important thing. It's not. I tell you what the true celebration is: the day you were born again, or the time you were born again. That's something to celebrate. Okay? Celebrating the death of Yeshua is important, because that death is what freed us. It's the same as the Jewish Passover. That Passover is what protected them. It's what brought freedom to them from death. Okay? While everybody else in Egypt's firstborn was being killed, that death angel was passing over the camp of the children of Israel. So that's something to celebrate. But a birthday? Not really a big deal. You're not that important, really. I mean, you know, when you think about all of the things that we celebrate, it's always got something to do with eating. It's always got something to do with us putting ourselves in a position of, or a seat of receiving. You follow what I'm saying? We don't have the mentality of givers, because this world system has programmed us to be receivers and to think of ourselves all the time. So that's why I have beef with those kind of things. Anyway, the first mention of the observance of the birth of Christ was in AD 200. For many years, several dates were used. In 336, 25th was first mentioned. The 25th being the date of Yeshua's birth was first mentioned in 336 AD, 336 years after the death of Christ. 394 AD, Christ's Mass was first said. Now, remember in the beginning we were talking about it's not Christmas, it's Christ Mass? Okay, well, where does the Mass come from? It comes from Roman Catholicism. So the Mass, the Christ Mass, was first said at midnight on December 24th. Okay, which is the 25th of December. Apostate religious machine changed it from Baal's birthday to the birth of Yeshua. How about that? How do you change something that's pagan? Remember I asked you that question, how do you make something that's unholy, holy to God? You can't do that. They took Baal's birthday, the sun god. They took the sun god's birthday and made it the birth. Instituted it as the birth, said this is the date we're going to celebrate. It's commanded. This is a law of the church that we celebrate the birth of Christ, the birth of Yeshua on the 25th of December. That's baffling. The pagans loved it. They were cool with it. You know, they weren't tripping. You know, I'm sure if you celebrate a murderer's birthday and he's still alive, say he's in prison, and you celebrate his birth and call it his day, I'm sure he wouldn't have a problem with it. He doesn't care that you celebrate that, but you say that you are something else, that you say you are a follower of God. It's no big deal to him. He's like, cool, they celebrating me, you know? It became the biggest day of the year for the Roman Catholics, as well as the development of the Christian doctrine. It became the biggest day of the year for the Roman Catholic institution. Not only that, but it was also the development of the Christian doctrine. So this is why I have a problem with it, because this is where the Christian development started taking on a new faith, taking on legs and arms. And, you know, before it was just something that people called the followers of Christ. Okay. King Agrippa mentioned it. Okay. And it was just something that he just rambled off. But now we have this thing taking on arms and legs and a head, and, you know, now it's becoming developed. Okay. Cardinal Newman, who lived from 1801 to 1890, was considered the father of the Second Vatican Council. He was told by Eusebius that Constantine, in order to recommend the new religion of Christianity, did you hear what I just said? The new religion of Christianity to the heathen, transferred into it the outward ornaments to which they had been accustomed on their own. So here Constantine is. The threat of losing his kingdom is upon him. And you know what he says? Instead of losing everything, I'm going to just incorporate everything to make everybody happy. I'm going to make us just one big happy family. So I'm going to recommend this new religion of Christianity. I'm going to recommend that we transfer all of the outward trappings, everything that the pagans have done all of these years, all of these centuries, into this new religion called Christianity. Okay? So this meant the use of temples dedicated to particular saints. That's where that came about, because that's what the heathen did. That's what the pagans did. And where do we see that? Roman Catholicism. That's the beginning of that. Ornamented with branches of trees. Okay. We're talking about wreaths and all different kind of ornaments of branches of trees, incense, lamps and candles, votive offerings on recovery from illness, holy water, asylums, holy days and seasons, use of calendars, okay, processions, blessings of the field, sacerdotal vestments, the tonsure, meaning the shaving of the head, the ring in marriage. Are you listening to me? These are all pagan customs, okay? Turning to the east, images at a later date. Perhaps the ecclesiastical chant even came out of that. But turning to the east, how many religions do you know that do that? It's all pagan. Okay? No confusion here. It's written. It's all pagan. All pagan, but because the church adopted them, they are now sanctified by the use of the church. These are the Pope's words. They think that because they sanctified it. Now, this has nothing to do with God, does it? But they are so powerful. They put themselves in the position of God in Roman Catholicism, which is why they have so much power over institutionalized religion, and everybody's doing what they do, just not every exact thing the way they do it. Some stuff is regurgitated and revamped, but it's still the same thing. It's still the same spirit. Because we bless it, or because we sanctify it, as the Pope, who is the God or the Lord, okay, considered a Lord or a God, someone who has absolute power and whose authority goes down into all of the churches and their word stands. Because we've done this, then it's now sanctified for the use of the church. That's foolishness. How does a pope sanctify something for the use of the church that's never written in the word of God and say that they are godly?